Previous lesson, we talked about the growing tension between the Americans and the British. We also discussed the Boston Massacre and how British soldiers fired onto American civilians. Today we're going to talk about the next couple steps to get us closer to war with Great Britain.
The British controlled a company called the East India Trading Company, and the main product that they were selling is tea. So if you guys remember from the last lesson, after they repealed the taxes following the Boston Massacre, the main tax that was left was the tax on tea. A guy named Frederick North, he was Great Britain's prime minister, which basically means he's like their president. He wants to ship the tea to America and then force us to pay a duty. And a duty is like a tax on something that's being shipped. He expects that this is going to help out the East India Trading Company because it's going to force us to buy their product. And he also thinks that it's going to help out Great Britain because they're going to have all this tax coming in. So what happens is we refuse to pay this tax. They're afraid that soon all British merchants will pay no taxes, but the American merchants will, and that's going to make them go out of business. That's really going to hurt them if they have to pay extra, but the British people don't. So Samuel Adams gets all of these people together who've ordered tea, and he says, you know what? Cancel your orders. We're not going to pay for these taxes. The problem is the tea was already on its way, and it takes a couple months to get here. So Lord North, he underestimates how strongly we feel about paying these taxes. And Sam Adams made it clear. He said we would not accept any taxes that are imposed on us. And imposed means forced. So a ship carrying tea arrived in Boston's harbor late in November, and that was the ship that he was worried about. The British governor of Boston says, you know what, we're going to unload this tea and we're going to collect the taxes. Now, a group of people said, we're not letting that happen. They dressed up like Mohawk Indians and they got on the ship. So they got on the ship and they basically told the captain, we won't kill you, but we want the tea. So the captain gave up the tea. And what we did is we didn't just steal the tea. We took the tea and we threw it into the ocean. We ruined it. So the reason why we ruined it instead of stealing it is it's a bigger insult. So like imagine that when we come back to school, some kid goes through my desk and steals my lunch because they were hungry. I'm going to be upset, but I understand why they did it. Now imagine another day a kid comes in, goes into my desk, steals my food and just dumps it in the garbage. That's going to make me far more upset because they didn't steal it because they were hungry. They stole it to upset me. And that's what we did to the British. In Charleston, South Carolina, they stole the tea and they let it rot. And in Annapolis, Maryland, they took the tea and the British guy refused to give up the ship, so they set the ship on fire and burned it. So how did the British react to this? They were furious. Some Americans were a little bit scared, though, and they said that we were doing too much. They actually offered to pay for the tea that was destroyed. So they wanted to pay for the tea that was destroyed to kind of squash this problem that was brewing. They thought it would prevent a fight from happening. So the British responded by passing a new law called the Intolerable Acts. And the Intolerable Act basically shut down all of Boston, and it said, if you're going to steal our tea, we're going to block you from getting any products in and out. And it also made it illegal for Boston to have any town meetings. The reason why is they know that we're getting upset, and if we have a town meeting, we're probably planning something against them. And they want to stop us from planning any kind of rebellion. So this is pushing things closer and closer to there being a conflict. The British soldiers also, if they were accused of breaking a law, they were no longer going to have a trial in America. They were going to get to go back home to Great Britain and face trial. So that basically means that these British soldiers are free to do whatever they want and not really face any consequences. Okay, so we're going to go on to lesson 4. The British actions against Boston basically unified us. We see them doing all of these horrible things to us, and it's going to unite a lot of American people together, and we're going to want to come together to do something about this. Sam Adams wanted to figure out a way to cause more things to change. These earlier protests had worked, but it hadn't done enough yet. So Adams says we need a bigger plan. He invites all of the colonies to Philadelphia. He says, we need to meet up and we need to figure out what to do. They have this big convention to figure out what the plan is going to be. The meeting was called the Continental Congress, and the reason why they called it the Continentals is that was one of the names the British had for us. And the main thing they're talking about is what are their options to do with Great Britain? What can we do? Can we fight? Can we talk? They wanted to figure out what the best plan was. All of the colonies except for Georgia showed up. So out of the 13, 12 of them showed up. There's all kinds of important men were there: George Washington, Patrick Henry, Sam Adams, John Jay. And these men were all considered to be patriots. And a patriot is someone who loves their country. The Continental Congress was held in Carpenter's Hall in Philadelphia, and the delegates had a debate. They argued for weeks about what the best option was. Some people were ready to go to war right then. Some people were ready to try to talk it out. Going to war is risky, though. Great Britain has the strongest army in the world, and if we choose to fight them, there will be consequences. They send the king a letter called the Declaration of Rights, and the Declaration of Rights is basically telling the king that we're going to refuse to be treated this way, and we're not going to pay these unfair taxes. We also told him that we were going to boycott British goods, so we're no longer buying anything off of them because they're treating us badly. They said, if you don't make these changes, we will have another meeting. And that's not a really good threat, but they told the king we are taking it seriously. So when the king gets this letter, he laughs at it. He says, no, I'm not doing what they want. He's got the strongest army in the world, and he says he will crush us into submission, which basically means he's going to make us give up. He knows that he can send his army over here, and we probably can't do anything about it. So what happens then? We have to start getting ready for this. So Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Patrick Henry, they all know that a fight is coming, and we do not have an army, because Great Britain was our army. But since now they're our enemy, they can't protect us and be our enemy at the same time. So we had to get some soldiers together. And the soldiers we had were called Minutemen. And they were basically these guys who were ready to go. If they heard the fight was coming, they picked up their gun and they went. They were not trained soldiers, though. Some of them were young, 15 years old. They were farmers. They were not trained soldiers. So General Gage, the military governor of Massachusetts, he finds out that we are getting all of these weapons ready. And he wants to stop us. He wants to get us and take these weapons away before we can do anything about it. So he sends a guy named Major Pitcairn to seize the weapons. He wants him to come and steal our weapons so we cannot attack. So we find out they are coming. And we decide we're going to get ready. So Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott end up riding through Massachusetts telling everybody, get ready, they're coming, the British are coming. Revere ends up being captured, Dawes has to retreat, but Samuel Prescott makes it all the way to Concord, and he tells them, we got to get ready, they're coming. So the colonists get ready, and we meet the British at Lexington. When the British show up, they are expecting to have the element of surprise. They're expecting to just walk up on us and, us not be ready for it. But when they showed up, we had 70 men with guns waiting for them, and a battle ensued. So shots were fired, people were killed on both sides, and this event becomes known as the shots heard round the world. Not because the guns were loud, but because of what happens here, a huge section of the world is going to be affected.